This is Sunday Edition with Richard Pyatt.
In this Sunday edition, a conversation with the Republican candidates vying for the job of Utah Attorney General will give Sean Reyes and John Swallow the chance to make their case to voters and discuss each candidate's vision for that office. Plus, in this week's political roundup, a closer look at outside money in Utah politics and if there should be more transparency. All in this Sunday edition. And a good Sunday morning to you. I'm Richard Pyatt. The state attorney general is the state's chief law enforcement officer and chief legal advisor. Republicans John Swallow and Sean Reyes both want the job and are here to take our questions. But first, a little background on both candidates. John Swallow currently serves as Utah's Chief Deputy Attorney General. He also served in Utah's House of Representatives and as a judge pro tem in the 3rd District. He has experience as a litigation attorney, has served as corporate general counsel. He earned a law degree from BYU. Sean Reyes spent 14 years as a partner at the largest law firm in the state. He's also been a small claims judge and corporate general counsel. He has founded, led, and served on numerous business and charitable boards, served on state and federal commissions, and co-founded Fraud College, an organization that combats fraud. He graduated from BYU and UC Berkeley Law School. And joining us in the studio now are Sean Reyes and John Swallow. Thank you both for being here today. Now, we want to point out to our viewers that this is not necessarily a formal debate, more of a chance for the voters to get to know both of you better. We're going to allow 30 seconds for questions. We're going to allow for opening remarks, 45 seconds each, and then for responses as needed. Let's go first with John Swallow as a result of our coin toss.
Thank you, Richard, and thanks to KSL. I'm running for this office because this is a critical time in our state, in our country, and we need to take immediate action on things that matter the most. I'm a conservative, and that's the real difference between the two of us. As a litigator, as a state lawmaker, and as Chief Deputy Attorney General, I've compiled a consistent conservative record that you can trust. I led the Utah fight to overturn Obamacare. Sean thought we should wait a little while. I led the fight to access public lands. Again, Sean thought we should wait and take a different approach. Well, we cannot wait any longer. Utah needs an attorney general with conservative vision and conservative values. That's why I have the support of Attorney General Mark Shurtleff, U.S. Senator Mike Lee, and the NRA, and I look forward to having your support as well. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Swallow. Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Richard. Now, the Office of Attorney General is critical to the state to defend our families and to defend our freedoms, and it has such a critical impact on the everyday lives of citizens. Now, the Attorney General is the lawyer for the state, represents the state agencies, law enforcement, but must ensure that in that representation that the rights and the liberties of the people are not lost by these state agencies. My vision is to return the Office of Attorney General back to a law office of and for the people, accountable to and transparent to the people. Now, I am not a fan of those influences on the Attorney General's office. I think it may be unduly influenced by politics, by lobbyists, and what I want to see, Richard, is that we have a law office that's accountable to the people and answerable to the people. I am not a career politician or a career lobbyist. I'm a career lawyer and leader, and that's why I believe I'm the most qualified for the job.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reyes and Mr. Swallow. We'll start with our questioning right now. I'm wondering, based on what you know about the way the current Attorney General's office is being run, what specific leadership qualities, Mr. Swallow, you would bring to the office to move it forward?
Well, thank you, Richard. Leadership is an important part of being the Attorney General. I know that from my firsthand experience as a leader in this office. The Attorney General's office has about 237 lawyers, and so it takes leadership. And leadership is really about having a vision and setting a clear course. It's not just about being a lawyer and logging billable hours. I feel that my experience as a leader in this law firm will really prepare me well to give the vision that we need to give to the other attorneys who work so hard to defend the rights and the liberties of the people.
Okay, Mr. Reyes, same question to you.
Thanks. Being a seasoned, experienced lawyer and leading litigation teams and leading lawyers is an important part of being a leader. Now, there are other aspects as well. I've led large organizations in the civic arena, in the business arena, some larger than the Attorney General's office as far as the number of lawyers. And I have a very clear style. I don't care who gets the credit. I think as long as the team wins, that's the most important thing. I think we need to roll up our sleeves, just work hard, get the job done, and that is what's key there in the office. That is what I think the lawyers in the office are looking for, and that's what I will bring.
Okay, let me pin you down just a little bit more specifically. What things would you change based on what you know about the office right now?
The things that I would change, I think the office needs to be, again, less political, less influenced by special interest, by lobbyists, by political agendas. And my background, again, is I'm not a career politician, I'm not a career fundraiser, I'm not a career candidate, I'm a career lawyer and a leader. And I think that's what the office needs the most right now.
I know, Mr. Swallow, that you have some specific ideas about how you would change the office. It says so on your website. What kinds of things are you talking about there? Kind of put those in your own words about the specific changes that you would make to the way the Attorney General's office runs right now.
Well, sure. Well, one of the things I'd do differently, and I've been in the office just long enough, 2.5 years, so I understand the good things and I understand the things that are problems as well. One of the things I'd really like to change is the political nature of the office. It's a political job. I have experience in the legislature. I've worked with the governor's office really well, and I have those great relationships. But I'd like to see us dealing with issues, policy issues, more behind the scenes instead of out in the public life and the light quite as much as it's been in the past. I also feel like we should change some of our priorities and focuses. Since I've been there, we've really led the charge on fighting for access to our public lands so we can develop our natural resources, create Utah jobs, and fund education. So I'm going to really lead with a vision on the priorities that are important to Utah, and that's the change I'd make.
Now, I know that this is a partisan race. Obviously, you're in a political fight right now. Can you assure people, Mr. Reyes, that this is going to be a nonpartisan office, that you're truly going to be serving all of the citizens of the state of Utah, as you stated? And give me some examples of some things that you would have done differently, perhaps.
No, Richard, it is a partisan race. It's set up that way, and I'm proud to represent the Republican Party, but a lot of the functions of the office are nonpartisan. I liken the office of Attorney General much to a firefighter, and if somebody's home is on fire, they care most about somebody who's experienced and qualified to evacuate their family and to put out the fire. And I think that's the same with the Attorney General's office. We need somebody who has a career of winning cases in the courtroom, also who has a career of leading people and leading lawyers to victory in protecting Utah businesses and in protecting Utah citizens. And that is exactly what I will bring to the office.
Mr. Swallow?
Well, you know, I've been leading the largest case for Utah in the history of our state, the Obamacare case. A great example of how partisan it can be is in Arizona or Nevada. The Attorney General's a Democrat and wouldn't join the lawsuit of the 26 states. And so even though it's a nonpartisan office, perhaps it is partisan, and I cannot divorce myself from the conservative principles and values that I have. As Attorney General, I'll support the policies of the legislature and the governor when I can, but at times I will disagree, and my conservative bias will come through as Attorney General.
Okay, so you're saying that you will keep the office a partisan office. You'll be beholden to the governor and the legislature, perhaps.
No, well, they set the policy for the state. But what I will do is I will follow my conscience. And I will never forget that I'm a Republican and a conservative, because those are the values that I hold dear in my heart. And so when I make a decision, it will be based a lot on my own personal values. And I think that's why it's so important in this race to really drill down on where are the values. Is a candidate a real conservative, and will he hold true to those values?
Okay, Mr. Reyes, do you have anything to add to that? Do you agree with that?
Well, again, I do have good relationships with the governor and the legislators. Many of them have asked for my advice in the past and counsel. That said, the Office of Attorney General is an elected office, and because of that, the Attorney General has to be independent even of the legislature and the governor, and I think that's a key role for the Attorney General. He is the voice for the people, and in many cases is the last line of defense for the people. So consensus is a good thing, and I would look to work with the legislature and the governor when they are doing things constitutionally. But if not, then I would make sure that they understand my position. Okay, so let me just be clear about this, because Mark Shurtleff has kind of stepped out a little bit. He's taken a stand against the lawmakers when it comes to certain immigration pieces of legislation that were going to cost the state money as far as fighting them. He's stepped out to defend Attorney General Eric Holder, and when it came to the Fast and Furious raids, there have been other examples
examples as well. Are you saying, Mr. Swallow, that you disagree with Mr. Shurtleff about taking those positions and that he should have stuck to the Republican line on those?
No, I'm not disagreeing at all. In fact, my record will show that I'm able to be independent from the legislature or from anyone else I disagree with. When the president put forward No Child Left Behind, I was one of the few Republicans that stood against him, and I actually asked the vice president's wife to change her speech when she came for a fundraiser for me, and she spent a half an hour reworking her speech, and she was quite upset with me. I have the courage to stand on my own, and I don't want to make any misrepresentation about that. If and when I disagree with the legislature, I will let them know. The key is how you let them know, whether you go public about it and try to create a war, or if you try to resolve those differences behind the scenes and then move forward together if you can.
Let me ask you to respond to that as well. When you were watching those cases, I'm sure you were keeping track of them. Did you agree with Mr. Shurtleff, or did you disagree with him?
No, I think the approach is one better. If you do it behind the scenes, I would be less public, less political, if you would, less open about that. I think that that is a prudent approach. I think the legislature and the governor appreciate doing it that way. That said, if there is a case or if there is an issue that I feel very strongly about, or if there is something I think that the Attorney General's office can help in shining a light upon, whether that be domestic violence or fraud, then I would use the office in a very public way to help draw attention to those issues, inviting the public to help become part of the solution rather than just growing government and relying on government to answer those problems.
Okay, very good. The time has gone fast. We need to take a break right now. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, more questions and the closing statements from both candidates. This is Sunday Edition. Welcome back to our conversation with the Republican candidates for Utah Attorney General John Swallow and Sean Reyes. Let's pick up our conversation now. Mr. Reyes, what is your view of lawmakers pushing to hire outside lawyers, perhaps to save money or for another purpose, to handle cases that are representing the state of Utah?
Sure, as long as it's an open process, an open bidding process, I don't have a problem with that. I think it's a good idea, especially when there are a number of states and you can share resources. Economies of scale make sense. So I'm not opposed to using outside law firms. I think sometimes there's expertise that can be had, which would supplement the fine lawyers that they have in the Attorney General's office.
What kinds of cases would that apply to, would you say?
There are any number of different types of cases. Some of them would be 10th Amendment, states' rights cases. Some of them would be large product liability cases.
What are your feelings about that topic, Mr. Swallow?
Well, generally speaking, I'd like to take all of our litigation in-house and conserve taxpayer dollars because outside firms can get expensive. But like, for example, in the Obamacare case, where 26 states were involved, it was very important for us to have one voice as the states. And so it made a lot of sense. I think Utah spent like $50,000 total for that case. And so it made a lot of sense to go outside. We have very specific rules in the office that govern, how the fair bidding process has to work and when that's necessary to do, but I would like to do as much as I can in-house and save the taxpayer dollars. And we have outstanding lawyers in our office. I want to compliment them on the air, and we can use their expertise whenever possible.
Let me ask you about some of the difficult subjects that the Attorney General is tasked with pursuing, in particular polygamy. How far, Mr. Swallow, should the state go in prosecuting polygamy?
Well, again, the policy of the Attorney General to this point has been he will not prosecute those who are consensual adults who are living in that type of a lifestyle. There are social reasons and legal reasons for that. But when there's abuse, child abuse, when teenage brides, for example, or when there's fraud in the welfare programs of the state or federal government, then we have to be very aggressive. And those are the same policies I would continue as Attorney General because, again, like with Warren Jeffs, when we prosecuted him with the Washington County Attorney's Office, we were there in full support, and it was very important that we fight that fight. And it's also important that victims of that type of abuse know where they can call and how they can get a hold of us to make sure that they're safe and protected and aren't afraid of reporting abuse, which is really important to me.
Okay. Mr. Reyes, are there any limits to what the state should do as far as pursuing polygamy in your view?
I would prosecute polygamy. It's the law of the land. It's not one of my highest priorities, but I would aggressively pursue those who are committing underage rape, child abuse. Predators like Warren Jeffs, I strongly believe, need to be behind bars, and I will gladly put them behind bars. I also believe that we should not expose the state to liabilities by managing private trusts. We see where that's gotten us now, and I was opposed to that and continue to be dismayed at the outcome. But my focus would be on protecting women and children and going after economic fraud, tax fraud.
Okay, excellent. Let me finish up the questioning, but I have another very difficult topic, and that is this topic of immigration. How far should the state's role be in pursuing and prosecuting illegal immigrants when it's a federal issue after all?
Good. I'm glad you asked that, Richard. HB 116, which went too far, is a bill that I opposed because it's unconstitutional. I did, however, support very strongly HB 497, which allows us, among other things, and mandated that we run background checks on those arrested for serious crimes and offenses. That is a proper exercise of our state police power. I think there are thousands of cases right now that are not being prosecuted of identity theft, and I would be very aggressive about those. I think that we need to do something because it's hurting our families, our children. I would support an E-Verify bill as well with some teeth that I could prosecute. And lastly, let me say this, Richard, I would do everything in my power to push the federal government to come up with a national solution, starting with enforcing the border.
Okay, fair enough. Mr. Swallow, how far should we go in pursuing immigration here in this state when it's a federal issue?
Sure, and it is a federal issue, but we have to deal with the consequences in Utah. I mean, it's a strain on our criminal justice system with the crime. It's a strain on our taxpayers with the benefits. When I was in the legislature, I had a clear record on this. I stood strong against illegal immigration, and I would do that as Attorney General, supporting the policies of the legislature like House Bill 497. Sean talks about House Bill 116, which is a real important issue moving forward. We'll have to look at that very carefully because we'll have to defend that law if it goes into effect as the Attorney General's office. But I have a very strong record. Our office has a secure strike force, which is taking down document mills right now. As Attorney General, I'll be ever stronger on that issue. It's a very important issue to us.
So we'll let you take a real deep breath, and we're going to move straight into our closing remarks now because our time is almost up. Mr. Swallow?
Well, thank you, Richard, and thanks to KSL and Sean and those who are listening to us. I'm running for this office because I believe in this office, and I know what an effective Attorney General can accomplish. I'm a conservative. I have the support of the conservatives, and I will be a conservative Attorney General. I've helped lead the Utah fight against Obamacare and sued the federal government on access to public lands so that we could create jobs and fund education for our school children. No one needs to wonder where I will stand or how I will lead as the Attorney General. I will stand on my record. I will be a conservative Attorney General. And I will stand against and fight anyone who, for any reason, takes away the rights of the individuals, our families, our citizens, and I will lead with integrity in the Attorney General's office, and I would ask you humbly for your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Swallow. Mr. Reyes?
Thank you, Richard, and thank you for your listeners. I appreciate the opportunity to tell you a little bit more about my vision. I am the most qualified candidate for the office of Utah Attorney General. I have won civil and criminal cases and led legal teams throughout my 15-year legal career in court, representing Utah citizens, representing Utah businesses, and that is why so many legal leaders, presidents of law firms, large and small, presidents of companies, support me because they know when it comes to my background, not only do I have the most experience and success as a lawyer, but I have the most as a leader. And many of them are conservatives, and I'm very proud of my conservative principles and credentials. But this is the thing. We are not running for lobbyist general or fundraiser general. We're running for Attorney General. And when they vote and when you vote on June 26th, and I hope you do, for Attorney General, you will be voting for the state's top lawyer. That's why I was Utah's Young Lawyer of the Year in 2006, and that's why I was the Young Lawyer of the Year for the United States in 2008. I ask for your vote, and please come to our website, SeanReyes.com, to learn more about me. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Sean Reyes, John Swallow, for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Richard.
Maybe we could just invite John and Sean to come on up here. The format today is we're going to start off with each one getting 2 minutes to introduce themselves. Then there will be questions that they've submitted to me that they're going to ask each other, and we're going to they get 90 seconds to answer the question, and then 45 seconds of rebuttal from their opponent. And then at the end, they'll get 2 minutes apiece to wrap things up. So, sounds pretty simple, doesn't it? Okay, good. Let me just tell you that I know both of these gentlemen very well, and I will tell you that they're both some of the finest people that our state has to offer. They're both great men. Okay, with that, we'll get started. Again, we'll start with Sean and go to John, and then I'll ask the first question.
First of all, I want to thank Stan Lockhart for agreeing to do this last minute as a moderator. Admire Stan very much, and also Greg Peterson for honoring our commitment to have this debate. We locked into this a few months ago. We were excited about this debate and this format. We had the rules all week long and then ran into a snag last night. The other side decided that they didn't want to have the same rules, and I want to apologize to you because I'm disappointed we won't have a true Lincoln Douglas style debate. Nevertheless, I'm happy that we are having a debate, and I want to give again credit to Greg Peterson for really working hard to honor this. I appreciate your attendance here and want to tell you a little bit about myself in the minute I probably have left. I want to return the office of Attorney General to being the law firm for the people. I believe that the Attorney General's office needs to be the voice for the people, and even though the Attorney General represents the state of Utah, and that's a significant role, he needs to make sure that in that representation, that the agencies that he represents, that law enforcement, that they do not deprive the citizens, small businesses, of their rights and their liberties. That is my vision. The Attorney General's office needs to be accountable to, transparent to, and of and for the people. Now, thank you. I not only have the superior legal experience and leadership background in this race, I have the integrity, the constitutional values and principles that will best serve the state of Utah in the office of Attorney General. And ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to ask you, if you have any interest, please visit our website at www.seanreyes.com. It's SEANREYES.com. We need all of your help and support. We're going to win this June 26th. Thank you so much for being here today.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is John Swallow, and it is my privilege to be with you this afternoon. I'm grateful that so many of you have come. I likewise am grateful for this opportunity that we have to meet together and talk about the issues and really talk about what's important about our country and where we are. I don't know if you feel like I do, but I feel like we're in a firefight right now for our freedoms. It's been my privilege over the years to have had the opportunity to stand on the wall and fight for our freedoms. Not only as a lawyer for the last 22 years, as I've been a partner in a private litigation firm, a well-respected firm in downtown Salt Lake City, fighting my own cases, winning battles in court, but also as a member of the Utah legislature for 6 years, where I stood on the wall and fought for our freedoms. I fought for property rights. I fought for the Second Amendment. I've been endorsed by the NRA in this race because they know I stand on the wall hard and fight for our rights and for our freedoms under the Second Amendment. And I fought against illegal immigration in the legislature as I voted to make English the only language of the state of Utah. And I voted against benefits for those who come here illegally and break our laws. It's been my privilege, thank you. It's been my privilege as Chief Deputy the last 2.5 years to fight some of the most important battles in the history of our state. To have been asked by Mark Shurtleff to be the lead counsel for the state of Utah on one of the most important cases in our history, one of the largest cases in our history, and that is the fight to overturn Obamacare that no one gave us a chance to win, but we're winning that fight. I'm the elite attorney in the fight to overturn our public lands. I'm working with Ken Ivory and the legislature on that major battle because we have to have access to our lands if we're going to have our freedoms. Thank you. I'm proud to receive and earn the endorsement of Senator Mike Lee, who knows my conservative credentials and knows my integrity, and Mark Shurtleff, the Attorney General, who's a fighter as well and has done a lot of great things, even though I disagree with him on some issues. I'm grateful for this opportunity for this debate and look forward to the next 30 minutes. Thank you very much.
Okay, now remember, they have asked each other these questions. So the ones that go to Sean are from John, and the ones that go from John are from Sean. So it should be kind of interesting here. So let's see. First one for Sean Reyes. What was the largest case you've ever been involved in, and what specifically was your role in that case?
Largest case that I've ever been involved in. It's hard to quantify it unless you're talking about dollars, numbers of lawyers involved, number of attorneys involved. I'll give you one example, though, and that was the Yellowstone Club bankruptcy case. Just to give you an idea of the breadth of that, every single lawyer in the state of Montana, in this Montana State Bar, was involved in that case as local counsel. We had so many different lawyers from out of state. There were billions of dollars at stake in this bankruptcy, and it was our job to represent unsecured creditors, thousands of small mom-and-pop businesses, including many good Utah businesses, that stood to lose tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars or their entire business. We came in 3 months' time, doing what it would normally take a year to do, fought against the largest law firm in the country, Skadden Arps, who sent 150 lawyers. I was one of the lead litigation counsel on there. We brought in several teams just to handle the depositions and all of the trial prep work. I took witnesses at the trial. I made arguments at the trial. I was one of the leads. And in an unprecedented case covered by the Wall Street Journal, they moved aside Credit Suisse and their $500 million, pushed them away based on our efforts. And we got those unsecured creditors who usually get nothing paid 100 cents on the dollar. We protect Utah citizens. It's what I've done my entire career. That's why I should be Utah's next Attorney General.
Mr. Swallow, first question. In any federal or state court... He gets a chance to... Oh, you get for... Oh, you know, I'm already off script. Back to you, John, for 45 seconds.
I'm going to waive rebuttal. Thank you.
You get brownie points for that one. In any federal or state court, have you first chaired a trial, argued an appeal in court, or been the principal drafter of an appeal brief, not including small claims court? If so, when was the last time you did, and how many times have you done so?
Well, that's a tough question for someone who's been a lawyer for almost 22 years. I was a partner in a litigation firm of Scali and Reading for the first 7 years of my career. In a smaller firm of 14 lawyers, you have responsibility from the very beginning in your own cases, and so I was almost always first chair in the cases that I handled. Several of the cases that I can talk about, one was a case called the bankruptcy of Touchphone International, which was a company that, as I recall, employed a couple of hundred employees that we took into a Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And I was the lawyer for the company, the lead lawyer, the first chair lawyer, and worked with probably just about every major firm in town, reorganizing that corporation, drafting and preparing a plan of reorganization, having that plan submitted to the bankruptcy court and approved by the bankruptcy court. So that was a significant responsibility which I had as a partner in the law firm of Scali and Reading. Other cases that I handled, there was a case called XM International versus Aurora Credit Services, where in a motion case, I won a motion for summary judgment and a motion for dismissal at different stages of the case. I'd like to say I did such a good job that it went up to the Supreme Court and it was overturned on appeal. But I felt like it was significant that I was able to win a case at the district court level and have it overturned, showing, again, the advocacy skills that I had as a lawyer with the court. I think I'm out of time. I've got other cases I could talk about as well.
But just to be clear, John, and he said you were a junior partner for 2 years at Scali and Reading, but you didn't first chair any trials, not at the federal level, state level, or administrative level. You never argued an appeal, actually, yourself. You never actually drafted the appeal primarily to go to the Supreme Court. So what you were talking about in your experience as a litigator is what normal first, second, third-year litigators do. It's what I've done my entire career at a very early stage, and what I'm talking about is leadership experience on cases, and that's why we asked the case. So if I'm clear, you have not first chaired a trial at all in your 22 years. And I think you answered that by not answering it, or argued an appeal at any level, or been the principal drafter of an appeal brief, doing the substantive kind of courtroom experience that we need. Now, you take credit for Obamacare, but...
Thank you. Sean gets brownie points for stopping at 45 seconds. Second question for Sean. What's your approach to public lands?
My approach to public lands is to fight. I support HB 148. I've been dealing with public lands issues because I grew up in Hawaii in my summers, understanding the need and the rights for a state to have sovereignty and to have a say in how their lands are managed. And I would say that our founders would turn over in their graves if they could see what has been done with federalism turned on its head. Now, public lands It's easy to talk about public lands and it's easy to have a lot of rhetoric, but what can you really do? There are some serious issues facing us. The Kleppe case, as some of you might be aware, pretty much put an end to the Sagebrush Rebellion and the 1995 Commission Rebellion. It put aside the argument that the Enclave Clause was supreme. Instead, it granted sweeping federal powers under the Property Clause in the fourth section of the Constitution. That is a bad case, and it's going to hurt us, but I still think it's worth the fight. There are a number of things we've looked at. We looked at taxing the government. We've looked at exercising eminent domain. We've looked at bringing a case in the Court of Claims, although that will only get us monetary damages, and we want our lands back. And so what I think I will do is I would look at a declaratory judgment action based on constitutional principles, because the federal government lied to us and misled us when we became a state, and now we should not have to honor the commitments in the Enabling Act or in our Constitution. We should be able to get our lands back based on constitutional principles and contract principles alike.
Well, because my opponent doesn't have a record, it's hard to rebut him on that. I take him at his word. Getting back, my goal in this debate is not to tear down my opponent. I'm running for the office of Attorney General. I'm not running against Sean Reyes. So I'll use my rebuttal time in the next 15 seconds just to respond to what he just said about my career. I've been a litigator in a private law firm. I had a law and motion practice, and I have led almost every case I've been involved in since I was a junior associate at the law firm of Scallion Reading. And I have been lead counsel for Utah on the Obamacare case from the very ground floor. And I am the lead counsel on the 3310 case against the Secretary of the Interior when he filed an unlawful executive order and tried to take away our public lands from us and create more wilderness areas. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Swallow, are you AV rated as a lawyer, which is the highest rating for skill and integrity? If not, what is your Martindale-Hubbell rating?
You know, one of the funniest things is to listen to two lawyers talking about something that no one really understands. And I've heard this a lot in the last couple of months as my opponent has tried to be in the thick of thin things in this campaign. Let me tell you how Martindale-Hubbell works. If you want a rating from them, you pay a fee. You pay a subscription. I have not been a partner in a litigation firm, besides the Attorney General's office now, seeking clients since I was out of law school for 7 years, when I became a general counsel to a company, became a major corporation, a global corporation in the world in dietary supplements. I have not sought after clients. It has not been an issue that's been important to me. If I want someone from a book to rate me as a lawyer, I know what kind of a lawyer I am, then I can pay a subscription fee and I can get rated. I honestly, Sean, don't know what my Martindale-Hubbell rating would be if I'm even rated at the present time. But when I worked as a partner for a respected downtown law firm, I was entitled to use the Martindale-Hubbell AV rating, and I haven't thought about it since until this was an issue brought up by Sean in this campaign. The thick of thin things.
Thanks, John. And I'll give you a pass for not understanding the process because you haven't practiced most of your career for the last 22 years. You don't pay for a rating for Martindale-Hubbell. That's absolutely false. You can buy a subscription to their service, and the listing in there lists your different practice areas. You don't request it. It's done anonymously. And the interesting thing is you can't get even a skill rating, the A part of it or B or C part of it, until the majority of the lawyers and judges in the community feel like you have the high enough integrity to get a rating. So it's interesting that Mark Shurtleff has a rating, and he hasn't been in a law firm. The lawyers that you talk about and those partners that you talk about, they all boast their AV ratings. I've had an AV rating for almost half of my career, and it's significant. It's what we do in the practice, and people are very proud of it because we're real lawyers, and that's what we've dedicated our entire careers to do.
I don't hear any applause.
I think it was sinking in because lawyers were talking about things that people don't understand. But once it does sink in, feel free to give a lot of applause. Thank you.
I think I'm losing control. Okay, let's go to the next question. This one is for Sean. The case against Obamacare was filed the day it was signed. What was the rush, and in trying to rush it, was anything sacrificed in the court of public opinion?
You repeat the question? You said one more time.
Yeah, some of these questions are kind of, there's several themes embedded in them. So, the case against Obamacare was filed the day it was signed. What was the rush? And in trying to rush it, was anything sacrificed in the court of public opinion?
Well, absolutely. The whole idea of politicians putting 4,000 pages and having the legislature pass a case with unconstitutional mandates, it was horrible. And I think the idea of getting that case filed without having any input is something that I want to, again, address. As Attorney General, I think it's important that we have a dialogue and that we're transparent and that the public understands why we are doing things, and after we do them, that we explain to them what's going on. But since John took the liberty of addressing something else in his rebuttal, let me talk too about that. Now, he's staked his credibility as a lawyer on this Obamacare case, and I think it's a fair criticism. I'm not criticizing John personally, I'm just criticizing what he has put out as his record and his reputation. The Obamacare case, his own people in his own office have said that he had very little to do with it. Our former Solicitor General, Anita Mitchell, well respected, she was the lead lawyer on that case, and she called John on that. I think, John, she said she was the lead lawyer on that case, John, and she said that you were the one who appointed her to that position, and she said that she felt disappointed that you were misleading the voters about that, because this Obamacare, especially the Supreme Court charade there, while a significant issue in our state and in our country's history, had little to do with you. She said you sat in on a couple of phone calls, and that's what the other folks in the office have told me too, that you're hardly there, you're absentee. And again, that's not what we need in a manager or a leader. Now, I understand you have political ambitions and other things that you're going to work on.
Wow. That's all I can say is wow. You are so misinformed, Mr. Reyes, and you know it. I have a lot of respect for Anita Mitchell. She was our Solicitor General. She didn't want to be involved in the case. And we asked her to be involved in a very little part of that case, a group of Solicitors General, where I was on every phone call. She was not part of our executive team. If you listen to the Attorney General, if you listen to the Attorney General of other states who I worked with, I was on the ground floor, one of the first 4 states, as the chief deputy involved in the very highest level strategy of that case. Sean, you don't know what you're talking about, and I would appreciate you get your facts straight or be honest with the people when you talk about Obamacare. It was my privilege to lead that case, to be on the front row of the Supreme Court during all of those arguments, to attend other hearings, and be involved in major significant decisions, and I say wow.
Now, when the time is up, it's your turn to stop talking, both of you, okay? No, not just you, John. Sean, you're both up here trying to get the last word in. Okay, this one is for John. Okay. Mr. Swallow, name the following: all the clients for whom you have lobbied, when you were last compensated for any lobbying work, and any supplemental sources of income outside of your compensation from the Attorney General's office since you began working there. Would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I think I've got it. You know, the answer is no to the first two. As a former member of the legislature, I have a lot of friends who are members of the legislature currently. And I decided that to go beyond what the law required and experience full disclosure and full transparency in everything that I did. So a few years ago, when I was in private practice, I decided that I would go beyond what the law required and disclose anytime I met with someone, even socially, a member of the legislature. The spirit of full disclosure and transparency is something I think is missing a lot in the state. And I'm a fighter for that. So, Sean, you should know better than to ask that kind of a question, because you know, if you look at the reports, that what you've alleged against me is not true. And if you just read the reports carefully, you'll see that when I had discussions with members of the legislature, I reported them, but there was never any kind of official legislative activity even discussed in those meetings. But in the spirit of full disclosure, I went beyond the law, and that's what I'll do. And you can criticize me for that all you want. And the law, by the way, allows someone to work and finish legal work when you become a member of the Attorney General's office for the first year and receive compensation for that, and also to work in other areas that are not law-related while you're in the Attorney General's office. So again, if you do your research and if you're careful lawyer as you say you are, then you'd know the answers to questions before you even ask them, Sean.
John, you didn't even answer the question, though. That's the problem. And your indignation belies the fact that somebody's actually calling you out and asking you to be honest. So if you're going to ask me to be, I would like the same from you. Now, it's interesting because I think you give yourself too little credit for your lobbying career. Now, I remember being introduced to you just a few years ago by Richard Rahl, who was your former boss and CEO of Czech City, who was bragging about his super lobbyist. And that seems a little inconsistent with what you've just articulated. You can sound very good, John, but when the facts contradict what you're saying, again, that's what people need to hear. That's what they don't get to hear in a regular debate, and that's what they don't get to hear on the stump. And that's why that's the only reason we're bringing these things up. We're running for Attorney General, not Lobbyist General, not Legislator General. And when it comes to legal experience, John, that's all I've done, and I'm a better lawyer than you.
Now I have to remember the question that Greg gave me. If I'm wrong, Greg, don't beat me up over it. Here's what I think the question is, and whose turn is it to start? It's John's turn to start. No. We got one more question.
I'm happy to start.
Another question?
But
Okay.
I think it's his.
We'll start with John. Okay. Here it goes. Freedom and liberty are the reason that these people are here today. Tell me the role of the Attorney General in defending freedom and liberty. Well, being the moderator, I'm done with it for now, but if they want to embed that into it, they could do that too, Greg.
Thank you, Stan. That's a great question. And, you know, before I was in the Attorney General's office 2.5 years ago, I really didn't know what the role of Attorney General was in fighting for freedom from federal encroachment or from any other encroachment on our rights and liberties. But now I understand that the Attorney General is the person who has the ability to go to court and access the court to enforce the laws of our land, including the ultimate law of our land, which is the Constitution of the United States of America. And that's been my privilege the last 2.5 years to lead out. See, an Attorney General is more than a litigator. Although I'm a litigator and I've been a litigator for a lot of my career, it's also about being a leader. And a leader does more than log billable hours and write legal briefs. A leader has vision, and a leader understands that he has access to the courts and the Attorney General's office to stand up against federal encroachment. And that's what we did in Obamacare. And the neat thing about Obamacare was 26 states now know that they can stand together and do what the Founding Fathers designed them to do. The states, at the end of the day, are the guardians of federalism. And now we understand that. So the Attorney General has a huge role because he's the only person in the state that has access to the courts to do that. We have Congress, we have the governor, but the Attorney General goes to court and fights and defends our liberties. And that's what we've done on public lands, and that's what I'll do as we prepare ourselves to attack the federal government's claim to our lands under the Enabling Act, the Utah Enabling Act. I will stand up for the state of Utah as Attorney General and do what I've been doing, and that is leading the fight for freedom and for liberty.
So do I rebut or do I answer that question?
90 seconds.
Just to answer the question.
Answer the question.
No
90 seconds.
Thank you. The role of the Attorney General in standing up to the federal government is one of the preeminent roles because the federal government does encroach far too much in our daily lives. And I'm tired of the federal government telling us what to do and how to educate our children, what to do with our businesses, what to do with our land and our guns and our gold. And it's time, and my commitment to you is that I will fight to return power back first to the individuals and families. Parental choice. Ideas where children are not ripped away from their families prematurely. Those are the types of fights that we need to have. Not just the state against the federal government. But here's the irony. Sometimes the state will turn around, although they complain about the federal government, and they'll do it to citizens, and they'll do it to businesses, and they'll do it to municipalities. And we need somebody who's not just going to stand on a wall and watch for those violations of our civil liberties. We need somebody who can get down from the wall, stand with side by side the people and fight to protect and restore the liberties back where they belong. Again, to the citizens, to the families, then to state and local government, and only those enumerated powers in the Constitution left to the federal government. Now, I do want to also say that it's significant. I have dealt my entire career, so I've known for many years about these abuses that take place. And I'm not throwing all state actors under the bus, but we have to be vigilant because freedoms will erode away and you need somebody standing, watching, and fighting for your freedoms.
I just want you to know you followed the script perfectly. Thank you very much. Okay, now we're going to have the summation from each candidate. We're going to start with 2 minutes from John, and then we're going to, at the end, it'll be 2 minutes from Sean, and then we're going to get off the stage.
Well, thank you. It's been a privilege to be here and to answer these tough questions. We are at a crossroads in our country and in our state. What I love about the opportunity to run for Attorney General now and to serve as Chief Deputy Attorney General today is the opportunity to utilize my background and my history, my personal history, as a litigator in a private law firm, as a member of the Utah State Legislature for 6 years, where I led the charge for property rights, for homeowners, for Second Amendment rights, passed legislation which earned me the endorsement of the NRA between us as they looked at both of us. Those organizations, people like Senator Mike Lee and Mark Shurtleff, they know me well, they know my integrity, and they know my background. We are at a crossroads. We have a firefight that we're fighting right now with the federal government and with the state government, encroaching upon rights and liberties and freedoms of people, and that's why I'm running. As Attorney General, I will continue the fights that I've been fighting and other fights as well. I will fight for the rights of parents. I think that what the state did a couple of years ago in the Parker Jensen case was wrong. I think parents have the right to decide those decisions for their children and for their families. I will lead the fight against illegal immigration like I did in the legislature, like I said in my opening statement when I voted against pressure to make so that English was the official language of the state. And as Attorney General, I'll continue to fight against the federal encroachment, which I think is the biggest risk we face today. If we don't stand up against the federal government, and sorry for, I can't believe that you ripped my metaphor about standing on a wall. We need to stand up on anything and stand up against this government, because the biggest threat we have in America today is the destruction of our freedoms by a federal government that doesn't understand one principle, and the principle is this: the federal government was never designed in our Constitution to govern us. It was designed to protect our rights and freedoms. I know that from my core, and I will fight for that as your Attorney General, and I ask you for your vote. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, we need a lawyer for the state of Utah. When you vote for Attorney General, you are hiring the state's top lawyer. And John helped me make my case. We also need a leader, and I appreciate him doing that because I have far more leadership experience. I have led large litigation teams and lawyers time and time again to protect Utah citizens. I've led business organizations. I've led legal organizations with more attorneys than in the Attorney General's office. I've been a leader my entire career and throughout my life. And I want to take skills back to the Attorney General's office, where political credit is not what's coin of the realm. The Attorney General's office, while politics plays a role there, it should be secondary to the principles of the law and the Constitution and to the people. And that's what I want to do. Roll up my sleeves, work hard, get the job done, not worry about a political career, and turn the office back into the office of and for the people. Now, we don't need a career politician who happens to have a law degree. We need a career lawyer who understands politics, and that's what I will bring. And with your help, ladies and gentlemen, and with your vote on June 26th, this is what I will do when I become Attorney General. I will stand up to protect our families, to protect our freedoms, protect our lands and our liberties against the federal government and encroachment there, to protect our business community, and to create a strong business environment where we really put away the bad guys who deserve to be put away. These things, ladies and gentlemen, are my commitment to you, based again on sound constitutional principles, based on principles of standing up and defending, understanding the rights of the people, and being an advocate and a voice for the people. Now again, there's a saying in law, res ipsa loquitur, a Latin saying, the thing speaks for itself, and I think my experience in law and leadership speaks for itself. My opponent, although he doesn't like to hear it, his lack of leadership and experience throughout his career speaks for itself, and the disparity between them speaks for itself. Res ipsa loquitur, ladies and gentlemen. Sean Reyes, Utah's next Attorney General. Thank you very much.